Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday night Anamkara meditation program. And I'm so glad you were able to join us for this evening's program. You know, starting things, the beginnings of any activities, starting points, they're so important because it's what sets the tone, it sets the focus, the direction, the intention for all that follows. And so it's great to be able to start the new year in a gathering like this where we're keeping the company of the highest truth and then being more and more empowered to walk that into this world. And so hopefully this is a year where each day we start like that. Because it's not just the beginning of the year. How do we start each day? How do we end each day? How do we start each moment? How do we end each moment? These are all things that a yogi, a practitioner, a meditator becomes more and more conscious of the importance of that and doing the practices that really sustain that, deepen that, expand that, so that we can know the fullness of the infinitude of being, revel in that, be drenched in that, and walk that into this poor, suffering world. So thank you for being ones who do these practices, who have a commitment to practice, and then come to this evening program and share the power and strength of your practice, your commitment, your presence. So thank you. So with that in mind, to begin with, I want to take a few moments to just allow our minds to settle and our breathing to deepen and calm the rest of the body and mind. And we've been doing that with a very simple practice for a few minutes at the start of the program, making use of slowing and deepening the breath in conjunction with the harmonium, and then giving the mind a royal seat, really the highest seat for the mind is mantra. And this is a very simple mantra, simply the mantra of aham. It simply means I am. And mantra is a sound form, a throb of the infinite. And that mantra, aham, well, that is the ground of our existence. And it's said that if we get subtle enough, and you'll find this yourself in meditation, you can hear the throb of that sound, the ah as the breath is coming in, the hum as the breath is going out, the ah hum, I am. The universal existence, the ground of being, is also the ground of our limited existence, our ephemeral existence. So we start with that awareness and come home to that. And it bathes the whole mind and body in that throb of consciousness, which also brings with it ease, tremendous peace, because the poor mind is always efforting at one thing or another. And this is an opportunity, an invitation for the let go into the infinitude of being, let go into divine presence, let go into the truth of who you are. So we start very simply with the breath. And as the breath is coming in, it's the ah silently in the mind. And then hum as the breath is going out silently again. Ah as the breath comes in. Hum silently as the breath goes out. Continuing to breathe slower, deeper, invites the whole body to let go, invites the mind. It's always grasping and grabbing at things, even if it's trying to understand, it's trying to grasp understanding. It doesn't have the openness, the spaciousness to discover that the highest wisdom, that's self-effulgent. You are the source of that. Look at any scripture, any text. It came through a mind in touch with the highest. Where? Within. You're the source. The truth of who you are, the source. All scriptures, all texts, all wisdom, all love, all compassion. So we start out with the highest. We start out with that understanding. So whether we're starting the year, starting the day, whatever it might be, start with that awareness and touch it very quickly. Let that be the foundation for all that then comes afterwards, moment by moment. So it's so important to start the day with meditation. Meditation is truly remembrance. It's a practice of remembering the truth of who you are, your infinitude of being, your boundless compassion, your boundless wisdom, your unshakable equanimity, your boundless joy. We start with that. The day may go downhill quickly, but we start with that, come back to it over and over again. That's what a yogi does. That's what a meditator does. We incorporate that practice into each moment. We live from that. It's the foundation of our existence, the state of meditation, expressed through practice, and then expressed through everyday activity, done with consciousness, illumined by the light of yourself, that blazing glory of who you are. That's what this is all about, this path. The path of meditation, the path of mystics, the path of knowers. Whether we call it a Buddhist path, a yogic path, or this, that, those are add-ons for the mind. The source of them all is still only one. So we might like this flavor or that flavor, but the one, that's the goal. That's what it's all about. So we start being very conscious of that and keep coming back to that. It's part of the discipline of practice, is to keep coming back to the truth, moment by moment. And what's a reminder to come back? Pain, suffering, pain, suffering. These are reminders. They're all coming out of ignorance, out of not knowing the truth of who we are, not knowing that in the moment, not experiencing that in the moment. The pain and the suffering in the world is also reflecting that. The pain and suffering we inflict on others, that's born of ignorance, not of the truth of who we are. If we're in the truth, then we're in the heart. Then we're in love. We're in love with all. How can we possibly harm another? So our actions will always reflect the state that we're in. We need to change our state, become steady in the awareness of the effulgent one, within, without, as all beings, as all creation. So that's where we start. That's where we end. That's what carries us through everything. So with that in mind, I thought I would do a reading from the Bhagavad Gita. And there are many different translations. I think my favorite translation is Yaneshwari. Yaneshwar, and I've spoken about Yaneshwar in the past, this great saint, sage. He wrote this, it's 2 volumes, this is the first volume, commentary on the Bhagavad Gita when he was a teenager. He was an enlightened being as a child. Extraordinary. But the poetics of it are, well, they take a little bit of contemplation and work, especially for the Western sensibility to dial into. And fortunately, there are other great translations. And this is one that was done by another a great teacher, Eknath Easwaren. And it's a really good translation of the Bhagavad Gita and a little bit of commentary on it, and very approachable for the Western mind. And because, here we are, we're starting this new year. We want to start with the deepest understanding that's going to allow our practices to flourish throughout the year, so that each day we're moving closer to sustaining that awareness, becoming a blazing light of that in the world, walking it into our everyday lives. And what empowers us to do that? Meditation. So, of course, what else would I be talking about? So this is chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's on the yoga of meditation, the practice of meditation. So I'm going to read this, and so you can sort of sit back and allow yourself to just listen and take this in, and contemplate it as you're listening to that. And the first part is a commentary by Eknath Easwaren. And then afterwards is this short chapter on from the Bhagavad Gita on meditation. So Eknath Easwaren writes, "This is surely one of the most intriguing chapters of the Gita. For here we are given a detailed explanation of meditation addressed to the layperson. The same meditation techniques are given in more esoteric writings, such as the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, but the Gita does it more simply and without any unnecessary mystery or complexity. This chapter also explores the question, who is the true yogi? This word, yogi, if it has any associations for the Western reader, is likely to bring up images of rather far-out types who do strange contortions with their bodies. Yogis are still thought of as standing on their heads or reclining on a bed of nails. And it is true that there are many practitioners of a kind of yoga that involves physical exercises and postures. And there are those who have achieved remarkable feats, like lying on a bed of nails, or even being buried alive and surviving. In fact, Eknath is not directly referring to this, but Yaneshwar Maharaj took living Mahasamadhi, and I've spoken about that in the past. He was such a great saint, and he said he needed to sustain a body on this earthly level to continue to do the work of bringing the light of wisdom into the world. So he had himself interred when he was 21, and in full lotus posture in samadhi, and he was buried alive. Interestingly, several centuries later, he had to be disinterred because of a root growing around his neck, and he was still there, perfectly intact, perfectly alive, still in samadhi. So there are things that go way beyond the ordinary mind that can happen through yoga. But this physical side of yoga, called Hatha Yoga, is not what is meant in the Gita. In fact, though physical techniques have a place, the Gita regards undue emphasis on them as extreme, not belonging to what might be called the mainstream of spiritual development. In the Gita, the word yogi often has a more modest definition, and it can mean a person who does his or her job with detachment from the rewards. Or it can be rendered as one who has attained the goal of meditation. For yogi literally means one who is accomplished in yoga. And yoga means integration of the spirit, union with the infinite, the self. In this sense, yoga means wholeness, or the process of becoming whole at the deepest spiritual level. The word yoga is also often used as a synonym for Raja Yoga, the practice of meditation as taught by Patanjali. For meditation is the direct means of becoming integrated, united with one's truest, deepest self. Thus, a yogi, among other things, is a person who is an adept at meditation. So we also see in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition a yogi, like a yogi, great yogi Milarepa, the same term being applied because it's an adept who has reached the highest levels of meditation and lives from that state. Now, until now, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Lord Krishna, because the Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Lord Krishna and his disciple Arjuna, Lord Krishna has been instructing Arjuna in the need for karma yoga, the active life of service. Now he is ready to initiate his disciple into the practice of the more interior disciplines of the spiritual life. Karma yoga, he says, is the path for those who wish to climb the mountain of self-realization. For those who have reached the summit, the path is shama, the peace of contemplation. At the beginning of the spiritual life, great exertion is required. As the summit is approached, though the climb gets no easier, the dimension of contemplation or stillness is added. Many spiritual traditions, of course, use this image when speaking of the religious quest. The mountaintop is the place where the holy, like Moses, commune with God, and St. John of the Cross describes the path to union with God as climbing the mountain of Carmel. In climbing this mountain, willpower, self-help, intense personal effort are absolute essentials. The literal translation of verse 5 is, one should lift oneself up by one's highest self, a play on the word Atman, the highest self, which can mean the highest self as well as the self in an ordinary sense, our little self. Oneself is thus one's friend or one's enemy. The lower self, as Western mystics sometimes call it, is self-will. Will in the negative, selfish sense. An unruly will, twisted toward self-aggrandizement, is an enemy lurking right inside the fort, where it can do the most damage. But those who have conquered themselves by themselves have the truest friend in their highest self. Only those who have genuine self-discipline, who are self-conquered, live in peace. We have to, as a matter of fact, so much is written these days, even in the research field that I was involved with looking at meditation, as self-regulation skills. These are the highest, the pinnacle of self-regulation skills. These, Krishna says, are true yogis. They cannot harbor any malice, cannot even bring themselves to look upon anyone as an enemy. They are samabuddhi, truly integrated inside, and they look upon and feel everyone's joy and sorrow just as if it was their own. He sees the self in all beings everywhere. How is this self-conquest to be made? Very simply, the Gita teaches that the mind must be made one-pointed through the practice of meditation. This is the basic technique. In the Gita, we do not see the tendency for elaboration, for ritual and mystery that we sometimes find in the Hindu tradition. Krishna simply tells Arjuna first that he must find an appropriate place to meditate. A suitable spot for his practice will be clean and comfortable. In a nod to tradition, one verse recommends that meditation seat be covered with kusha grass or a deerskin, the traditional seat of the yogi. The important thing, however, is not how the meditation cushion is constructed, but what is going on in the mind. Meditation is an internal discipline to make the mind one-pointed, absolutely concentrated. Now, second, Krishna offers a bit of advice about holding the body, head, and neck in a straight line. This may seem esoteric, a reference to the contortion school of yoga, but actually it has a practical purpose. Sitting absolutely straight with the spinal column erect prevents drowsiness. Also, in advanced stages of meditation, it allows for the free flow of the vital energy, also known as Kundalini, to flow. Then the practical advice is given. Moderation is the path. Neither extreme asceticism nor indulgence will aid meditation. A superficial acquaintance with Hindu culture may leave the impression that it fosters either the sensuality of the Kama Sutra or the asceticism of the hermit. It is true that in the Indian civilization, we can easily see the ultimate development of the sensual and beautiful life in its finest manifestation in painting, sculpture, music, and dance. And Indian cuisine is famous for its incredible variety of flavors and spices. India also presents us with the austere simplicity of the wandering holy man, or sadhu, a sannyasin, or renunciate. The Gita, however, recommends the middle path, success in meditation. Krishna says comes neither to those who eat or sleep too much, nor to those who eat or sleep too little. The body should be neither overindulged nor treated harshly. The same recommendation the Buddha was to offer later after many years of severe asceticism. This chapter contains the famous verse comparing the mind to a steady flame. By its very nature, the untrained mind is restless, constantly wandering here and there and trying to fulfill its desires. It flickers wildly like a flame in a storm, never blown completely out, yet at the mercy of the wind. Wherever it wanders, Krishna says, it must be brought back to its source. It must learn to rest in the self. Once it is at home in the depths of contemplation, the mind becomes steady like an upright, unflickering flame in a windless place. In this deep meditation, and only there, can the human being find true fulfillment. Then the still mind touches the absolute Brahman and enjoys bliss. Now Arjuna asks the inevitable question. Krishna is way ahead of him, and the struggling disciple calls out, "Wait a minute," to the words to that effect. He says, "My mind is so restless and unsteady that I cannot even comprehend anything about the state of mystic peace that you're talking about. The mind is so powerful, so turbulent, that trying to bring it under control is like trying to catch the wind." Krishna admits that the mind is terribly hard to train, but he maintains that it can be done through regular practice if one has detachment. It is interesting that he does not offer to help Arjuna here. That will come later. For now, he tells Arjuna that he must do it for himself through hard work and detachment from private, personal motives. Then Arjuna asks a rather surprising question. What happens to the person who believes in a spiritual goal but does not pursue it to the end? What if one of his more powerful compulsive desires gets the better of him, scattering his resolution the way a cloud is scattered by the wind? Arjuna must be at least partly convinced that there is something to all this, but either he is not ready to begin meditating, or he is afraid that somehow he might fail if he tried. If he were to fail, he asks, Would he have lost everything? All that he had given up in worldly life, as well as his goal of self-fulfillment? Affectionately, Krishna assures Arjuna that no attempt to improve his spiritual condition could possibly be wasted effort. Even looking ahead to the next life, he has nothing to lose and everything to gain. He will be reborn in a household suitable for taking up his quest where he left off. In his next life, he will feel drawn to the spiritual goal once again, and he will have a head start. So the general Hindu belief is that self-realization requires many, many lives of spiritual discipline. It's also why we can see it as people who are awakening to the depths, awakening to the self. Though they've done little or no practice, they're beginning to have experiences or feeling drawn to it, though nobody in their milieu, their family, was interested. These are also the samskaras, the positive impressions left from past lives, drawing us back to get back onto the path, get back to our focus, get back to our highest intention, to know the infinite as our own self and as all that is. So this begins chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita, the yoga of meditation. So Sri Krishna says, "It is not those who lack energy or refrain from action, but those who work without expectation of reward, who attain the goal of meditation. This is true renunciation. Therefore, Arjuna, you should understand that renunciation and the performance of selfless service are the same. Those who cannot renounce attachment to the results of their work are far from the path. For aspirants who want to climb the mountain of spiritual awareness, the path is selfless work. For those who have ascended to yoga, the path is stillness and peace." You even see this in the Buddhist tradition, right? Where we dedicate our practices for the benefit of all beings. It's not a selfish act. Even the act of meditation is done selflessly. When a person has freed himself from attachment to the results of work and from desires for the enjoyment of sense objects, he ascends to the unitive state. Reshape yourself through the power of your will. Never let yourself be degraded by your self-will. The will is the only friend of the self, and the will is the only enemy of the self. And that will is very subtle. When we're sitting in meditation, we don't think it, that we're willfully indulging in thinking. We're willfully following thoughts, distractions, feelings, memories, and say, that's all an act of will, the petty will, the will of the ordinary mind. That's what we're harnessing. That's what we're turning. That's what we're transforming. To those who have conquered themselves, the will is a friend, but it is the enemy of those who have not found the self within. The supreme reality stands revealed in the consciousness of those who have conquered themselves. They live in peace, alike in cold and heat, pleasure and pain, praise and blame. See, he's talking about what it means to go beyond the pairs of opposites, go beyond the conditioned mind and its reactivity to those opposites. They are completely fulfilled by spiritual wisdom and self-realization. Having conquered their senses, they have climbed to the summit of human consciousness. To such people, a clod of dirt, a stone, and gold are all the same. They are equally disposed to family, enemies, and friends, to those who support them and those who are hostile, to the good and the evil alike. Because they are impartial, they rise to great heights. Those who aspire to the state of yoga should seek the self in inner solitude through meditation. With body and mind controlled, they should constantly practice one-pointedness, free from expectations and attachment to material possessions. So even when we were doing the beginning, the ah and the hum with the breath and the harmonium, we were practicing bringing the mind, bringing attention repeatedly just back to the ah as the breath comes in, the hum as the breath goes out. We're practicing, focusing, containing, controlling, regulating the mind and its will. Select a clean spot, neither too high nor too low, and seat yourself firmly on a cloth, a deerskin, or kusha grass. These are traditional seats of a yogi. Then, once seated, strive to still your thoughts. Make your mind one-pointed in meditation, and your heart will be purified. Hold your body, head, and neck firmly in a straight line, and keep your eyes from wandering. With all fears dissolved in the peace of the self, and all desires dedicated to the absolute, controlling the mind and fixing it on me. Now, this is Lord Krishna speaking. Fixing it on me, focusing on the Lord, on God, on the infinite, the divine. Controlling the mind and fixing it on me, sit in meditation with me as your only goal. With senses and mind constantly controlled through meditation, united with the self within, an aspirant attains nirvana, the state of abiding joy and peace in me. Arjuna, those who eat too much or eat too little, who sleep too much or sleep too little, will not succeed in meditation. But those who are temperate in eating and sleeping, work and recreation, will come to the end of sorrow through meditation. Through the constant effort, they learn to withdraw the mind from the selfish cravings and absorb the self and become absorbed in the self. Thus, they attain the state of union. When meditation is mastered, the mind is unwavering like a flame of a lamp in a windless place. In the still mind, in the depths of meditation, the self reveals itself. Beholding the self, by means of the self, an aspirant knows the joy and peace of complete fulfillment. The self reveals the self. Nothing, the mind cannot reveal the infinite. The infinite reveals the infinite. Its power of revelation, that's known as Kundalini Shakti. It's also known as Bhagavati Mahaprajna Paramita, the great goddess of wisdom. Having attained that abiding joy beyond the senses, revealed and in the stilled mind, he never swerves from the eternal truth. He desires nothing else and cannot be shaken by the heaviest burden of sorrow. The practice of meditation frees one from all affliction. This is the path of yoga. Follow it with determination and sustained enthusiasm. Sustained enthusiasm. This is a yogic practice, sustaining enthusiasm. Not, I got to drag myself to the meditation cushion. That's not sustained enthusiasm. Renouncing wholeheartedly all selfish desires and expectations, use your will to control the senses, and little by little, through patience and repeated effort, the mind will become stilled in the self. Wherever the mind wanders, restless and diffuse in its search for satisfaction without, lead it back within. Train it to rest in the infinite, the self. Abiding joy comes to those who still the mind, freeing themselves from the taint of self-will. With their consciousness unified, they become one with Brahman, the Absolute. The infinite joy of touching Brahman is easily attained by those who are free from the burden of evil and established within themselves. They see the self in every creature and all creatures in the self. With consciousness unified through meditation, they see everything with an equal eye. I am ever present to those who have realized me in every creature. This is Lord Krishna, the infinite, the divine, saying, I am ever present to those who have realized me in every creature. It's there. Your vision becomes so clear. You're never without the infinite, the divine. You see and perceive its presence always, because it's always here. What's preventing us from seeing it? Identification with the mind, attachment to the mind and its content. Seeing all life as my manifestation, they are never separated from me. They worship me in the hearts of all, and all their actions proceed from me. Wherever they may live, they abide in me. So when a person responds to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. Arjuna says, "Oh, Krishna, the stillness of divine union which you describe is beyond my comprehension. How can the mind, which is so restless, attain lasting peace? Krishna, the mind is restless, turbulent, powerful, violent. Trying to control it is like trying to tame the wind." Lord Krishna responds, "It is true that the mind is restless and difficult to control, but it can be conquered, Arjuna, through regular practice and detachment. Those who lack self-control will find it difficult to progress in meditation, but those who are self-controlled, striving earnestly through the right means, will attain the goal." And Arjuna asks, "Well, Krishna, what happens to the man who has faith but who lacks self-control and wanders from the path, not attaining success in yoga? If a man becomes deluded on the spiritual path, will he lose the support of both worlds, like a cloud scattered in the sky? Krishna, you can dispel all doubts. Please remove this doubt which binds me." Lord Krishna answers, "Oh, Arjuna, my son, such a person will not be destroyed. No one who does good work will ever come to a bad end, either here or in the world to come. When such people die, they go to other realms where the righteous live. They dwell there for countless years and then are reborn in a home which is pure and prosperous. Or they may be born into a family where meditation is practiced. To be born into such a family is extremely rare. The wisdom they have acquired in previous lives will be reawakened, Arjuna, and they will strive even harder for self-realization. Indeed, they will be driven on by the strength of their past disciplines. Even one who inquires after the practices of meditation rises above those who simply perform rituals. Through constant effort over many lifetimes, a person becomes purified of all selfish desires and attains the supreme goal of life. Meditation is superior to severe asceticism and the path of knowledge. It is also superior to selfless service. May you attain the goal of meditation, Arjuna. Even among those who meditate, that man or woman who worships me with perfect faith, completely absorbed in me, is the most firmly established in yoga. One-pointed absorption in the divine. Even through service, that is meditation. That is renunciation. That is the path. That's what we can start each day remembering. Why am I here? When the alarm goes off, when we open our eyes, the ordinary mind just starts spinning all its to-do lists. The top of the to-do list for a yogi is remembrance, is absorption in the divine, is remembrance that all that is the one. That's how we practice. That's how we proceed on the path. If we keep wandering off with the wandering mind, is there any wonder we don't feel like we're making progress. We have to have that self-discipline. We have to have that focus. We have to have that commitment, that dedication. That's what transforms the mind. That's the level on which the mind can discipline itself. That is part of the foundation. Revelation happens through grace, through the power of revelation, through the infinite reveals the infinite to the infinite. But the mind, it can do a lot to quiet itself, to detach. Remember, meditation is repeated detachment from what? The next thought, the next feeling. No, let it go. Come back to the focus. Come back to mantra. Come back to breath. Come back. Let go. Come back. Let go. Come back. Let go. This is meditation. Countless repetitions of letting go of distraction, coming back to being grounded in the truth of being. That's what we do. That's how the practice unfolds what is already fully present. It only seems to be unfolding because of the nature of mind. So we end with this prayer, that may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. So remembering, that's part of the practice, the discipline. The mind automatically practices forgetfulness. So we have to practice remembering until that becomes second nature. And all the practices are aimed at supporting us coming back to the truth of who we are. Using mantra, using breath, using just bare awareness in the moment, shifting our attention from content of mind to, that light of awareness that's always present. That light is always free. That light is who you are. It's illuminating the mind and its thoughts right now. It's illuminating your experience of your body right now. That light is always on. It illumines the dream state. It illumines the deep sleep state. It illumines all that is. That's what we come to know and revel in, dissolve in. See, the ordinary mind emerges out of that, dissolves into that. The existence of the limited mind rests on the eternal existence of the infinitude of being awareness. Know that, and you know that freedom. So keep walking that light of the truth of who you are into your day, from the start of the day, throughout the day, to the end of the day. Keep coming home to that truth. And that way we can experience that freedom, that loving, compassionate, joyous freedom, even in the midst of the turmoil of the world, the pain and suffering that we see in the world, that we see ourselves as all beings going through. We're now informed. With the heart of compassion that continually seeks to eliminate suffering in this world. That's what we're capable of. So many people are seeking ways to inflict suffering. Be one who carries the truth. That recognizes all beings are worthy of love, of grace, of support, of happiness. Come home to that. Let that inform every moment of every day. So I want to thank you all for being ones who do these practices and then carry that into your world, into your everyday life. Because that is the sacred vessel, the temenos, for realizing the infinite. It's your life here and now, as it is sacred. Everything about it is sacred. Realize its sacredness. So once again, with all my heart, with all my love, I want to thank you for coming this evening and bringing your divine presence and your sublime commitment to practice, bringing it here and sharing it with everyone. Thank you.